Hello and welcome to the Home and Learn video course for VisualBasic.net. I'm Kenny Carney and have I got a project for you in this lesson. VisualBasic.net, and we are doing this one, a VBNet calculator project. How about that? Only lesson 8 of part 2 and already you are creating a calculator. Click on here if you want to do the text course rather than listening to me. And we're going to be doing this. This is the calculator that you will design. And let us go to the software. To speed things up, I've already got the basics of mine. So if you add a text box to your form, and if you call it txt display for the name, it doesn't have to start with txt. I'll explain that in a moment. You could just have, say for example, this display if you wanted. It could be called that. But I like to preface my text boxes with txt. And for the button, for the first one 0, you'll see for the name btn. I've prefaced my buttons with btn 0 if you call the first one. Second one, you call it btn again for button btn 1, that's your second button. Your third button should be called btn 2, and the fourth one has the name btn add, that's btn add, and your fifth one btn equals. And for the text properties, was the text btn 0 has a 0 on your keyboard. And for 1, the text 1 for button 1. For btn 2, it's a 2 obviously. And for the add button, that's a plus symbol. And equals 1, the text property, and equals. There are your text properties and your names. So if you do that, for this project, it's not really about designing a calculator or creating a calculator. It's about these properties and how to get the text property from a button and how to store it into a variable. So that's what it's about. So if you double click your first button, I've already added some code stubs for button 0, for button 1, for button 2, and for the calculator, the way it's going to work, so you will click, say if you wanted to add 10 plus 20, you would click on 1, and a 1 would appear in the text box. Then you want the 0 for 10, and that would appear in the text box. Then you would click the add, and say if you wanted to add 20 to 10, you would then click the 2 and the 0, and you would click the equals, and the answer would appear here. Let's see, how can we get the text property from the button and to place it inside of the text box? Well, first of all you need the text box, which this is why incidentally I preface my text boxes with txt. It's because they are grouped in these drop down boxes. So if I click out text display.text equals, now I want the button text, and for our buttons, because they're all prefaced with btn, then they're all grouped in this drop down box. If I call them something else, then you would see an awful long list. You would have to troll all the way through these, and you would have to find the name of your text box. But if you preface them, say with btn, they're all grouped together. So I want button, that one, button 0, because that's the 0 button, and I want the text property of that one, button 0, and I do the same here for button 1, text display.text, and I want to assign button 1 text. Button 1, the text from this button wants to go into the text display. Same for button 2. Again, 2. That's not that, is it? Now the text first. Text display. Dot text. I want to assign a value of btn2 to that one. The text from that button wants to go into the text box display. There is a problem with this though. I'll show you when we run the form. It is. And start without debugging, that's okay. And so I want to add 10 plus 20. So if I go 1, right, now if I have a click on the 0 button, you'll see it hasn't returned that text. So it's totally erased the contents of the text box. If I try 1 again, then try 10, that doesn't work. So whichever button I clicked, it is completely erasing the contents of the text box. So the question is, how do we retain the contents of the text box? Well, the way we do that is simply to put txt display again, txt display, and we can do an ampersand. We can do that. I want the text property of that. Right, so for this one, if you start on the right hand side of the equal sign, we want the text property from text display, and I want to combine that with the text property of button 0. Then once that is combined, it will be stored back into the text property, and it will totally erase the contents of text and put this new contents back into it. Let's do the same for the other ones. Text display. Easy if I copied and pasted these, wouldn't it? Text and ampersand. The simple is txt display dot text ampersand. Now let's see what happens. Start. I want my 10.1. There it is. It has kept. It's kept the contents of the text boxes. And type 2 and a 1, 0, 0, 1. So whichever button I'm clicking on now, the contents from the text box is all stored. It's stored correctly for what we need. We will now do the code for the add button. Add. So we double click your button, here at the code. And for this one, what we want to do, we want to clear the text box, and we want to store whatever was in the text box into a variable. Let me go back to here. So if I clicked 1 and 0, then when I click the add button, I want to erase the contents from the text box, but I also want to store the 10 inside a variable, because we're going to be adding a second number. So if I did 20 to 0, it would add together the 10 plus the 20. So we need to store the current contents of the text box into a variable. And what we need, you need a variable right at the top of the code. I'm going to do total as, let's do it, we'll do it as single. So we might want to add floating point numbers. Right, so there's the total, and it's right at the top of the code. And the reason I want it at the top of the code is because this button add, I need to be able to store any contents into total here from button add, and we'll also be adding code for the equals button. So the equals button also needs to see this total. If I just place this one here and I placed it inside here, it means that the equals button or any other button would not be able to see total. And if I add that on there and I put it there, only button add will be able to see total, which is called scope. So if you want your buttons to be able to see a variable, or more than one button to see a variable, then it needs to go right to the top of here. And so for this one, what we would like is total, that one, and for add, another equal sign, Then I want to keep the contents. And I want to add something called val, which converts text into a number. Text display dot text. I try to explain that. Right, so val, show off the value. It converts the text property into a number, and I'm adding total, whatever is currently stored in total will get added to whatever is in the text box, and then that gets stored back into total. Another thing I need to do is to clear the text box. That's quite easy. Text display. Instead of the text property, there is a clear. Right, this is subroutine. Clear. That will clear the text box, and it will be ready for a second number. If you double click your equals button now, I'm going to add some code to that. And what do we need in here? Well, because we've already added them here, and we just need to store the total back into the text box. And so I need text display again. So this is going to be equals, equal sign. Then I need that total variable, whatever is currently stored in here, and I need to add it to the new number. So I can do val text display again. Here dot text. And also I need to might want to start again, so I can erase the contents of total. So I can stick a 0 in there, and that will erase the contents, and we'll be ready for a new number. Let's see how we're getting on with our three numbers. With the start. So I want to add 10 on 0. Let me move that out the way a bit. Alright, I've added 10. Now I want to add 20, so if I click this button add, then the code here is going to be executed. We're going to store it into the total variable, and it should clear. So it clears the text box, and I've stored 10 in this total. Now I can add another one to 0. Now when I click equals, we're going to get this code. So whatever is stored in total is going to be added to this one, text display, with that bit there, and it's going to be stored back into our text box. Hopefully, fingers crossed. 30, there we go. And then the contents will get erased, total equals 0, and we can start again. At the moment, we haven't got a clear button. Let me add a clear button. Let me add another one of these. I can copy and paste this. Copy and paste. I'll just add it there. Let me have clear. And btn clear. Clear. Yeah, but the clear button is obviously just needs to clear the text box like we did before. It's just this line again. Text display dot clear subroutine. Let me try it again. 10 plus 20 equals 30. I can clear the display. I can try again. It's the 21 plus 1. 21 plus 1 equals 22. And clear it again. Maybe 100 plus 200 equals 300. And that is the basics for the calculator. So if you study that code, I'm hoping it will sink in for you. This is the tricky line, I think, for you. Total plus text from the text box. And we're storing it in here, right at the top, so that other buttons can see that one. And then the equals button, we add in the total to the new text for the second number, displaying it back in the text property, and clearing total, so we can go again. I think we'll leave it there because it's a bit long, but before we do so, you can add the other buttons for yourself. So the other numbers right up until 9, and you should have a basic calculator. You can add a bit of color if you like, and I might come back to the calculator so we can add the other operators like minus and the division, but for the moment we will leave it there. See you in the next video.